Aftersun is a 2022 drama film starring Paul Mescal as Calum and Frankie Corio as Sophie, with the film being written and directed by Charlotte Wells in her feature film debut. The film is built off a short film that she created back in 2015 called Tuesday. The film itself is all about Sophie, who's on vacation with her father Calum on the eve of his 31st birthday. The film took place on location in a holiday resort in Turkey, with Mescal and Corio spending time together at a holiday resort prior to shooting in an effort to build an authentic parental relationship between the pair, due to the smaller cast which was used and the age of the characters in the film needing that authenticity. The film feels extremely personal, as we've all been on holidays similar to that which Sophie and Calum are experiencing, and Wells, through the viewpoint of the era of the late 90s and the holiday resort itself, were able to make the audience who've been on similar holidays reminisce about their own memories of how they viewed their parents as children, and now when they're adults, the way in which we view everything does change as we grow. The camcorder that was used throughout the film by Calum to capture the moments between himself and Sophie, that then gets watched by an older Sophie, is something that fits the time period. But it was the way that some of the scenes were shot with only the camcorder as opposed to the newer cameras did give the viewer a gateway into the characters themselves and created a feeling that was visceral and at times perhaps too personal. It's evident from early on in the film that the love that Calum has for Sophie is pure and powerful, but also that she is an inquisitive child who's able to see the things that are happening around her and the effect that it is having on her father without being truly able to understand what it is that he's going through. This leads to some poignant scenes where she makes an attempt to comfort him through physical touch or her solo monologues into the camcorder. And while that doesn't help to ease the consistent undertones of despair and anxiety that we can feel throughout the film emanating from Calum, it is at times a nice small break to see the innocence of a child throughout these kinds of situations. We can see through a discussion that Calum has while he's out on a boat trip with his daughter that he never anticipated reaching 30, never mind making it to 40 now, as someone speculates and mentions to him. The struggle that Calum faces with Sophie attempting to understand what is happening to her father places a higher burden of guilt on him than we could have ever expected to witness throughout this film. This culminates in two particular scenes. One of them is when we are led to believe that on these types of holidays they traditionally would sing karaoke together, and Sophie signs them up for this as it is something that is consistently done. But when the time comes, Calum was unaware that she had done this and he is not able to participate. So he sits in the audience alone, watching his daughter try to do this, and he's unable to help. Back in the room, he has a breakdown with regard to his inability to assist, and as he leaves to go out for a walk, we are left to wonder if that is the last time that they will spend together. Thankfully, he apologises the following morning, expresses his sadness at being unable to participate, and Mescal is able to portray to the audience the way that Calum is feeling in a relatable way, as opposed to it being over the top or too subtle. We can see the effect that his anxiety has on his day-to-day life and the way that culminated in certain instances. Eventually, he is able to have one final moment with his daughter towards the end of the trip. They're able to dance together and just enjoy each other's company in a way that, again, feels very personal for the audience, that this is a moment for them that we shouldn't be a part of, despite the fact that they are only characters in a story that is fictional. We become aware very early on. Calum knows the effect that his mental well-being is having on his relationship with his daughter, and while he does want to try and improve that, he doesn't necessarily know how. He's doing a lot of things that that people would tell you to do in those situations, but it doesn't seem to be having the effect that he wants. And this is then causing a detriment to his relationship with his daughter. So it was great for them to have their moment together. If the film was to have a theme, it would have to be one of belonging. Calum explains to Sophie that when you move away from the place where you grow up, it can feel like you no longer belong there. And he explains to her that she belongs anywhere and everywhere. She can do anything that she wants, anywhere she wants to do it. But he no longer thinks he belongs anywhere in the world. And this is something that Wells manages to portray to the audience both visually and through words. The film has multiple shots which take place through the use of reflection, be that in a TV screen, a mirror, a reflection of a glass table. All of which are done to symbolise a character who is there, but also is only a shadow of themselves. Not quite wholly there, and perhaps not even capable of being so. There are rave scenes interspersed throughout the film, with none of these taking time for the camera to focus on any singular item. It moves very quickly, with the strobe lighting having an effect. This, I think, is used to demonstrate the way that our memories are constantly being altered. Aren't perhaps the most reliable sense of what actually went on in a situation. And the way that life consistently changes has a big effect on everybody to a level that we perhaps don't fully understand now and maybe ever. That on the one hand we have scenes in the past that show us that Calum is a loving father who wants to be there for his daughter as best that he can, as much and as often as he can. But then at the same time, it's never outwardly stated, but we are led to believe that sometime after that holiday in Turkey, Calum disappeared from Sophie's life, and this is something that Sophie is not capable of understanding until she ages and looks back on these videos, demonstrating that if we rely solely on our memory, we may look back on things to be better or worse than what they actually were. I like listening to the scores or soundtracks of films after I've seen them. Never before. I don't like looking them up and having some kind of subtle spoilers given. But I do have to say, Oliver, he created a sound that is unique in the realms of film scores. It is something that, at only 37 minutes in length, is probably why it's not getting talked about as much as it definitely deserves to. But it feels unnerving and ominous when you can locate the sound you hear into the visual that you'd already seen. And it is something that, in any stretch of the imagination, is no less than perfect. It keeps you on edge and uncertain, which is something that the film trailer and the film itself does. You don't necessarily know for certain what way it's going to take you or how it's going to end. Speaking of endings, the film ends in a way that allows the viewer to pick maybe what they want the ending to be or to represent, as to do anything different would probably have been emotionally devastating. The film is beautiful, poignant, personal, perhaps most importantly well told. This type of narrative is difficult to pull off for anyone, especially someone who's doing it for their first feature film. We know now that Paul Mescal has gotten an Academy Award nomination for his role. I don't expect him to win due to the talent that he's up against, but Frankie Corio also deserves a lot of praise for being able to portray everything that was going on at such a young age. Paul himself, his performance is subtle while also excellent, and I don't think does a disservice to anybody who is in a similar situation, which is always key when you're trying to tell a story similar to this.